Well, it looks like the traditional American car companies are finally getting wise to the EV market, with Chevrolet recently giving us a larger Bolt it's calling the EUV, and Ford also has come in with the Mustang Mach-E electric SUV. Now, while these two might technically not be in the same class, I can see some cross-shopping going on. It's Ford versus Chevy in the battle of the electric SUVs. Now, first we need to get these two Electron gulpers on an even playing field price-wise. So I'm going to go with the launch edition of the Bolt EUV at $43,495, including destination. The base Mustang Mach-E, that's the select trim, that can be had starting at $43,995, pretty evenly matched. The front-wheel drive Bolt EUV gets a 65 kilowatt-hour battery, good for 250 miles of range. While the Mach-E can get up to 305 miles of range, remember, we are talking about the base model here. The rear-wheel drive Select has a 68 kilowatt-hour battery with a range of 230 miles. The Select is also available in all-wheel drive, something not offered on the Bolt EUV, dropping the range to 211 miles. So, when it comes to range, point one for Chevy. As for charging, the Bolt gets 95 miles of range in 30 minutes on a DC fast charger. The Mach-E can also accept fast charging, and it can go from 10% to 80% of a charge in 45 minutes, or 184 miles. Now remember that EV charging times aren't linear, so I can't just do the math here and tell you how many miles the Mach-E would get in 30 minutes. Electricity just is really finicky like that. Now, if you're charging at home on a 240-volt outlet, the Bolt EUV would take 7 hours for a full charge, or about 36 miles per charging hour. The Mach-E, meanwhile, on that same 240-volt outlet, it can only shove 20 miles per charging hour into its battery, so it would take 11 and a half hours to fully charge. Damn, Chevy takes it again! The Bolt EUV's motor pushes out 200 horsepower, and while the Mach-E can go much higher than that, but we're talking about the select trim here, so we're looking at 266 horsepower. The Bolt also gets 266 pound-feet of torque, while the Mach-E does much better at 317 pound-feet of torque. Option that up to all-wheel drive, and the Mach-E's torque goes to 428 pound-feet of twist, and finally we get a point for the Mustang. Now, when it comes to size, the Bolt EUV is much smaller than the Mach-E, as to be expected. The wheelbase is 12 inches shorter, and it's 16 inches shorter overall. Height of the two is about the same, but the front and rear track on the Bolt EUV is about 4 inches narrower than the Mach-E. As for cargo, the Bolt EUV can hold 16.3 cubic feet of stuff behind the rear seat. The bigger Mach-E is at 29.7 cubes. Surprisingly, they both even out a bit when the rear seat is folded. 56.7 cubes for the Bolt EUV and 59.7 cubes for the Mach-E. The Mach-E also has 4.7 cubic feet of space in the frunk, something that's not even offered on the Bolt EUV. Now, I'm tempted to give it to the Bolt here for providing almost the same amount of overall cargo space with a smaller footprint, but I just love a good frunk, so point Mustang. Score so far, we're tied at 2. However, the Chevy Bolt EUV in this launch edition gets the hands-free Super Cruise driving assistance technology. This will also be offered on the top Premier trim, and it works on over 200,000 miles of roads in the US and Canada. This system has previously mapped roads in its brain, and then it uses real-time GPS information, LiDAR, cameras, and sensors to safely navigate those roadways. You still have to pay attention, of course, but man, I really dig Super Cruise. The Mach-E gets adaptive cruise control with lane centering, but the technology is just not nearly as robust as Super Cruise. Chevy +1 for Super Cruise! Alright, it looks like we have a winner! Coming in with 3 points versus 2 points, the 2022 Chevy Bolt Launch Edition EUV beats the Mustang Mach-E Select trim. Of course, if you want to spend more money on a Mach-E, you can of course get more power and range, but honestly, I'm really surprised that these two cars can compete at all, even if it is top trim versus bottom trim. All right, what do you think? You're going to spend 43 grand on an electric SUV. You going for the Bolt? You going for the Mach-E? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to like and subscribe.